What is going on? APFC back again. Today I am doing a video in relation to the latest news that Man City have a 2-year Champions League ban. Absolutely massive news. It has been reported that it is because they are overstated how much sponsorship revenue have come in. I think it was from around 2012 to 2015, around that sort of time frame anyway. But related to Arsenal, it now means that if this ban continues to stand, it is now going to be a top 5 for the Champions League, which in some respects opens up a slight chance of Champions League qualification for next season. So we're going to go through basically all the teams and their run-in coming into the end of the season. Obviously, some teams have European games to play as well, some don't. So we're going to analyze basically where each team are and who has the best run-in coming into the end of the season, because there is only 13 games now left in the season. We are really coming into the business end. So let's have a look. So I've got everyone's fixtures up first. Let's actually go have a look at the table. So currently, if the season stops now, Sheffield United would be incredibly in the Champions League, as they have 39 points after 26 games. They are 5th. 25 games, a game in hand, is Tottenham on 37 points at 6th. I would probably say right now they're the favourites. Wolves are on 36 points in 26 games at 7th. Everton are 36 points at 8th. United at 35 points at 9th. And Arsenal at 31 at 10th, which means that based on points, we are the outside chance to make the Champions League, as it now is the top 5. So let's have a look at everyone's run-in. Let's have a look at our run-in. So to give you a bit of an idea who we're facing coming up is that we do have to keep in mind that we do have Europa League commitments. I assume that I don't think we're going to win it, but I do think that we will make the quarterfinal to the semi-final. I don't think we're making the final this year based on the quality of performances that we've seen throughout the season. We have Olympiacos coming up. I am pretty confident we are going to be knocking them out. So we are going to have quite a congested fixture list coming into the end of the season. In terms of who we're playing in the Premier League, is that our next game is at Newcastle at home. We then face Everton at home, who is a direct rival now for that 5th place. We then play Man City. Well, actually, that's been postponed, but we will play them at some point. City will be playing away. West Ham at home. Brighton away. Southampton away. Norwich at home. Wolves away. Leicester at home. Tottenham away. Liverpool at home, Aston Villa away, Watford at home. That's a difficult run-in if you ask me. So you would probably think those first 4 games that I mentioned, being Newcastle, Everton, West Ham and Brighton, and Southampton and Norwich, it's actually 6 games, would be a very good opportunity for us to potentially establish a good challenge coming into the top 5. What we do have to really remember, though, is that Arsenal's performances against some of those lesser sides this season has been very poor. To give you a bit of an idea, we have faced Bournemouth and had a 1-1 draw. That was Arteta's first game. We drew with Everton, although Everton have improved a lot under recent weeks. We lost to Brighton at home. We drew with Norwich away, who were in the relegation zone. We drew with Southampton 2-2. At the time, they were bottom of the table, although they have gotten a lot better. We drew with Wolves 1-1, although Wolves are a very good side. We drew with Palace, which I thought was the game that Emery should have been let go. That was it for me. And who else? So we beat Bournemouth 1-0 at home. We just beat Villa 3-2. We drew with Watford, who were not doing great. We were also, I think, bottom at that point. We beat Newcastle and that was Burnley at home. But basically there was only 2 games there or 3 games there against those so-called lesser sides that we won, which was maybe against Aston Villa, maybe it was against, you could say, West Ham, and early on in the season we beat Burnley at home and we beat Newcastle away. That's 4 games only this season against those sides that we have really been able to capitalise on. Our record against the top 6 is also average. However, we did get a good result against Man United, beating them. And I think in another day we would have beaten Chelsea at home, and you could even argue potentially away. But I do not think we are going to get that 5th spot based on some of the other teams around us. a lot of it will depend on how this weekend goes, because obviously Arteta has had a little bit more time with the squad in the winter break period. He'll have a bit more time to sort of emphasise his ideas and what he expects from the squad whilst analysing the players that we currently have. So, excuse me, it will be interesting to see as to how we will kick on, particularly in these next few weeks, because if we can beat Newcastle this weekend, and Everton won't be an easy game, if we can beat Everton, but then play West Ham, Brighton, Southampton, Norwich, and get maybe wins or a couple of draws in that as well, I think that will bring us back into contention for the 5th spot, because currently right now Sheffield are on 39 and we're on 31 with a game in hand. So if we did win that game in hand, we would be 5 points behind Sheffield. Currently we are 8. Not unrealistic right now for us. Very different to last season where we had 4th in the bag with the great run-in that we had and we screwed it up. This is more so we're in the chase, and we're probably the outside chance for it this year, even with some so-called lesser sides above us. Let's have a look at some of the other run-ins of some of these teams. So let's have a look at Tottenham's run-in for the rest of the season. So to give you an idea, Tottenham have a Champions League campaign to look forward to. They have Leipzig in the round of 16. I think they will knock out Leipzig, so I do think that they will get a maximum, or minimum, of 4 games coming into on top of the Premier League games that they play for the rest of the season, and on top of the FA Cup games that they may play, because they are in the next round as well. They play Villa away, and then obviously they play the Champions League game against Leipzig, but then they play Chelsea away, Wolves at home, Norwich away, Norwich at home, Burnley away, Leipzig again, United at home, West Ham at home, Sheffield away, Everton at home, Bournemouth away, Arsenal at home, Newcastle away, Leicester at home, and then Palace at the final game of the season away. I think that personally they have a very similar run-in to us in respects to they have a good consistent run of games where they can pick up points against Norwich, Burnley. I wouldn't probably put Wolves in there because Wolves are sort of giant killers against those top 4 sides, and they've got some really good results. But they have Norwich and Burnley. I think very comfortably they'll probably take those results. Saying that, there is a couple of away games in the mix there for Tottenham, one being Burnley, one being Sheffield, Bournemouth being another, which I think they will get a result there. But then they've got to go away to Leicester as well. Their away form this season has not been fantastic, Tottenham. So you want to look at some of their results away from home recently in the Premier League. They drew with Watford away. They also drew with Norwich away. They lost to Southampton away. Who else have they got here? They beat Wolves away, which is a very good result actually for them. And who else have we got here? They beat West Ham away. They lost to Brighton 3-0 away from home. And that's what I think could let them down, actually, because I think their home form has been pretty good. To analyse some of their home form, they've beaten recently City at home. They've beaten Norwich at home. They lost to Liverpool at home, and that's never an easy game. They lost to Chelsea at home, actually. That they beat Brighton at home. They beat Burnley at home. They beat Bournemouth at home. They drew with Sheffield. They beat Southampton at home. And I think their home record will probably be fine against some of those teams, such as West Ham, such as who else do we have here? Yeah, they don't have many easy home games, because some of their home games is against Arsenal, Leicester, Everton, and ultimately away from United, and away from home they still have to play Sheffield United, who have done well against some of those bigger sides. With the Champions League congestion as well, I think that they may miss out on that 5th spot, just because I think that although they have improved under a Mourinho, I do genuinely believe that run-in could ultimately cost them, depending on how other results go around them. Obviously, Arsenal's sort of in the mix. We don't very often capitalise when other teams around us are doing poorly. So I think Tottenham, some would say they're favourites. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But they're definitely in for a chance, a very good chance, in fact, of coming fifth, because you look at the Premier League table, they are currently probably the favourites, considering if they win that game in hand, they go to fifth on 40 points if they were to play it today, which I think they actually might be playing this weekend. I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I do have that up here, is that this weekend they are playing against Villa. So, yeah, I do think that Tottenham are probably, in some respects, favourites, but they've got a very difficult run in coming into the end of the season. Let's have a look at Sheffield, who are currently, as things stand, the team to actually qualify for the Champions League based on position. So, Sheffield has been one of those teams this season where they haven't really dominated games, but they've done just enough to get results. They've had a lot of one-goal wins. So, to give you an idea of that, they beat Bournemouth 2-1 recently, 1 goal. They beat Crystal Palace 1-0 away, 1 goal. They're very defensively sound. They beat West Ham 1-0. They only lost to City by a goal. They lost to City home and away. They beat Brighton by a goal, 1-0. They beat Aston Villa 2-0. They beat Norwich 2-1. They lost to Newcastle at home, which was an interesting result for them. They beat Burnley 3-0. And they beat Arsenal 1-0. And for me, Sheffield is one of those teams that out of the top 5 to 10, they have probably one of the best records against those so-called lesser sides in the bottom 10. Ironically, considering out of all those sides, they're probably the least financially invested side and probably on paper have the least talented players. Do I believe that they can maintain it and finish fifth? Probably not. However, they have a decent run in. And if you're comparing what I was saying before about Sheffield beating those so-called lesser sides consistently this season, it suits them because they'll play Brighton at home, they'll play Villa away, they'll play Newcastle away, they'll play Norwich at home. They then have a tough run in 2 games against United away and Tottenham at home, which are both big games in the scheme of things for the top 5. Now the top 5, obviously not the top 4. Saying that, though, Sheffield have got some positive results against some of the bigger sides this season. They've performed very well against Liverpool, although losing both games against them. They performed very well against City, although only lost 1-0 to them. They've taken points of Arsenal twice. They have... What have they also they've done? I think they got a draw with Man United. Yep, 3-3. They drew with Tottenham. So, if they're able, and they beat Everton 2-0 as well, although Everton have come a long way since, and they've taken points off Chelsea too in a 2-2 draw. So, if they're able to win those games against Newcastle, Norwich, Aston Villa, and Brighton, which I'm confident 3 out of the 4 of those games they will get wins, you can't exactly rule them out. One thing that they also do have is they don't have European congestion in regards to fixtures because they're not in any competitions, whereas Everton are not either. I'll get to Everton shortly. But Tottenham are, United are, Arsenal are, and so are Wolves, who for the first time are now facing a pretty difficult run of games in terms of fixture congestion. They play Espanyol in the Europa League, and I probably think they may get a result there. So they may have a couple more games coming into the end of the season. I would actually almost say that Sheffield are in for a very good chance, as much of a chance as everyone else. Yes, they don't have the players on paper, but with their run-in and their results against some of the lower half of the table, I think they've got a very good opportunity to perhaps pull off a miracle season. Chris Wilder is doing absolute wonders with the Sheffield United side. Let's have a look at United. Now, United have been a massive hit and miss team. I've watched United this season. Sometimes I think they have a lot of potential to really kick on, particularly for next season. Sometimes I think they still have the same old issues that they've faced over the last 3 to 4 to 5 years since Alex Ferguson has left. Let's have a look. So some of their results this season. They have drawn with Wolves recently, 0-0. That was their most recent result. Let's actually first have a look at their run-in. So they have a Europa League run-in as well, and I do think United will probably make the semi-finals of the Europa League. I think that it's going to be difficult for them to balance the squad, and having a player like Marcus Rashford out, one of their key players throughout earlier on in the season, will ultimately cost them because there's more emphasis on Martial to score goals. I do rate Martial, but as soon as you let go Lukaku, which they did at the beginning of the season, it was always going to be very difficult to do as well without replacing him. And I think ultimately that decision will cost United maybe even the top 5 this season. But we'll have a look at their run-in. So they've got to play Chelsea this weekend, which will be a big fixture in the scheme of things, especially because Chelsea are currently sitting at 4th. Then they have to play Club Brugge in the Europa League, and then they have Watford at home, Everton away, City at home, Tottenham away, Sheffield at home, Brighton away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Southampton away, Southampton at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, Leicester away. I think for United, it all depends on these next few games coming up, because they, as I just said, apart from the Watford game, which is this weekend, they have to face Everton away. They have to place Man City, Tottenham, and Sheffield in 4 consecutive games. United, against some of the biggest sides this season, have been a bit hit and miss. They're the only team in the Premier League this season to take points off Liverpool. They got a draw against them. They beat Man City, which I thought was the game where I genuinely believe United were proper going to kick on for a top 4 battle. They are still in the mix though, however, but they're particularly in the mix now that it's a top 5. They lost to Arsenal in a Big 6 game. They beat Tottenham 2-1, and they've drawn with Sheffield 3-all. So that's some of the games that I can get up now. But yeah, I can't tell with United because they're such a hit and miss side. I do genuinely believe that United against the biggest sides tend to do okay. Solskjaer tends to be quite good tactically in those games. Ironically, it's some of the lesser sides which they've really struggled against. To give you an idea, at home they've been okay against some of the lesser sides, but they've recently lost to Burnley away, and at home. They lost to Watford away. And they've just been a little bit inconsistent this season. They drew with Villa at home. Villa haven't been great. They lost to Bournemouth away. So for me, with the congested fixture list and a tough run of fixtures coming in, I think a lot of it will depend on the Tottenham game. I think a lot of it will also depend on the Sheffield game, and ultimately the Man City one at home, which, if it's anything like the way that they played last time, City now in turmoil with all this distraction with the Champions League, potentially City could slip up, and it will allow United to get some valuable points coming into the end of the season. So, do I think they can do it? If they take maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 points against Everton, City, Tottenham, and Sheffield, or maybe 8, and then beat Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton, and Palace, get maybe like 4 out of 5 wins there, they're in for a real chance. And I think United, they'll see this as a massive opportunity. Solskjaer will be riling up the players. I think they're in for a good opportunity. Do I think they're bigger favourites than Sheffield? Maybe on paper, but in terms of run-in, I think it's very similar. If not, Sheffield had a better run-in and no European competition. In terms of Tottenham's run-in, who I mentioned before, I genuinely believe that Tottenham probably have a better run-in than Man United. So I would say Tottenham are probably better favourites than United to get that coveted 5th spot, particularly because currently, right now, Tottenham are 3 points ahead of United, with United being at 9th and Tottenham being at 6th. So let's have a look at Wolves. Now, I don't think anyone should be writing Wolves off. I actually believe that Wolves could be favourites to get that 5th spot, and I'll explain why. So, first of all, one of the main reasons why I think that they can do that is that they've had a very strong last 2 to 3 months in the Premier League. I think what's really let them down this season, and they could even be 5th or 4th right now, is the way that they started the season. The way that they started the season was extremely poor, but probably since maybe this year and towards the end of the season, they've got some positive results. So, for example, they've beaten, let's have a look here, who they have beaten this season. As I said, the way that they started the year, they lost to Chelsea, they drew with Burnley, they lost to Everton, they drew with Palace, and then they started picking up results. They beat Watford, they beat City, they've beaten City twice this season. They had a couple of draws against Southampton and Newcastle, but it was probably around November that they started to pick up. They got points against Arsenal, they beat Villa, they beat Bournemouth, they drew with Sheffield, they beat West Ham, had a draw with Brighton away from home, they lost to Tottenham, but then they followed that up with 2 wins against Norwich, Man City, and just losing against Liverpool 1-0. Watford got a positive result against Wolves with a 2-1 win earlier in the year. And I just think what will really do Wolves favours is that they will actually have some good results against bigger sides, and they've done well coming into the end of the season. So I genuinely believe that Wolves are in for a good shout coming into the end of the season. Just have a look at some of these bigger team results. They've drawn with United. They've only lost to Liverpool twice by a goal. Only one team has picked up points against Liverpool this season. They drew with Leicester this morning. They've beaten City twice. They've done a double against City. That's very impressive. They've drawn with Arsenal. Let's have a look here against some of the bigger sides. They lost to Chelsea, but they've drawn with United. They've drawn with Leicester twice this season because they had a draw early on this year. And I just think that with some of their games coming up, with some of their games being they've got Espanyol next in the Europa League. They do have European congestion, which could cost them as well. But they've got Norwich at home, Tottenham away, Brighton at home, West Ham away, Bournemouth at home, Villa away, Arsenal at home, Sheffield away, Everton at home, Burnley away, Palace at home, and then Chelsea away. But I think that they will take points off Arsenal. I think they could also get a draw against Tottenham. All these big sides tend to find it a big struggle to break down Wolves. And I just think that Wolves could also be favourites coming into this. And why I say that is that Wolves are currently sitting on 36 points. If Tottenham win, yes, they'll be 4 points behind. But I just don't think with the way that Wolves could finish the season and the form that they're looking to hit, you can't rule them out. And I think out of all the sides, they may have the best run in. And why I say that is because of their ability to be able to beat some of the top 6 sides. So I think they have more of a chance than United do, to be honest with you, based on their run-in. I think United have more of a challenging run-in with some of the bigger sides they have to play, particularly in the next few weeks, because if United can't get results against some of those bigger sides, they will probably be outside of the chance of making the top 5. I think Sheffield have a marginally better run-in, but Wolves have a better team on paper. In terms to Tottenham, I think Tottenham... Let's have a look here. I think Tottenham probably have an even run-in respects to Wolves. Maybe Wolves is slightly better, but I think the fact that Wolves have a weaker squad and they'll have to rotate a lot more coming into their Europa League campaign, if they beat Espanyol and get to the next round, I think that could also hinder their ability to really push for a Champions League qualification. It'll be very interesting to see how Wolves handle that sort of fixture congestion that they probably would have never faced in their history before. Let's have a look at maybe some of the other sides here. Maybe Everton. Everton, I'm not sure they'll be able to do it currently right now, because for me, I think that although they've had a very good run-in coming into the end of the season, and they've taken some valuable points lately, and they have the second best form behind Liverpool, I just think Everton are going to lack that consistency coming into the end of the season. I don't know why I say that, because I know that they've recently come up and they are on the best form of the Premier League behind Liverpool, but I just genuinely believe that they're not going to be able to continue that threat. I think they'll finish around 6th or 7th, but I actually do believe that Wolves, although around them, and I think Arsenal behind them, probably still have a bigger chance to finishing above Everton this season. But that's all I have time for today, guys. I just wanted to do an analysis as to who can make the top 4 or not, or top 5, sorry, now that City are now out of the Champions League. I think the favourites are Tottenham and probably Wolves, just narrowly behind them, and maybe outside chance for Sheffield, Arsenal and Everton. Thank you for watching my video, guys, and I hope to chat to you soon.